CAP&GOWN students, it's Miss Heller here. If you are a current junior, you'll be taking the ACT this coming Tuesday, March 9th at your high school. This is the free state-given ACT with writing. Y'all are gonna kill it. Couple quick things before you begin. On this first slide, I wanna point out that we keep our thoughts centered on the fact of what the ACT actually is. And it's a little bit hard to see here, so let me see if I pop it out full screen. The correct answer, I'm going to pause here, let you read an answer. The correct answer is D. The most correct answer here is that the ACT tests your knowledge and ability to do the ACT. The ACT is also one of several factors that colleges use to determine who to admit. Other factors include your GPA, your personal statement, your resume, leadership roles, the difficulty of courses you've taken. It is also one of the few factors that can be compared across states, cities, schools, even countries. The ACT is largely a reading test designed to measure whether you are able to read and comprehend and find information at a college level. So if you were in a college class, would you be able to hang when it comes to dealing with the textbook that you're expected to learn from about as much as you are from the professor? And then finally, the ACT is a math placement test, helping colleges to determine the best math pathway to place you on. A quick overview, and I'm actually going to use the next slides for this because they're easier to kind of see visually. Of course, perfect score on the ACT is the 36. That's why we call it Operation 36. I'm going to come back to this stuff. Let's do a quick breakdown and review. The ACT English test has 75 questions that you will answer in 45 minutes. ACT English is the first test you'll see. Think about it like 5 essays or 5 passages. They're going to be running down the left side of the page with underlined words and phrases. The questions on the right side of the page correspond to those underlined portions and ask you to make swaps and edits to the underlined portion. The ACT English tests grammar, punctuation, structure, rhetoric and style, and organization. Test number 2 is ACT Math. You'll get 60 minutes to answer 60 questions. They're organized from easiest to most difficult, with questions 1 through 30 being typically the most easy questions. So you really want to make sure you get 1 through 30 right. Questions will be on pre-algebra, algebra, coordinate geometry, plane geometry, and trig. Those trig questions are like the last 10 to 15. So if you haven't taken trig, use your time to answer the questions that you actually can get right. ACT reading is 40 questions in 35 minutes. You do get a quick break, so I'll go back and note that. After math, 10-minute break. Come back, 35 minutes to do ACT reading. It is 4 passages with 10 questions each for a total of 40 questions. Typically, one of those will be an A-B passage where you have an A and a B, 2 different passages that you're kind of reading and comparing. ACT Science is also 40 questions in 35 minutes. You do not need any science knowledge except for on maybe 1 or 2 questions. There are 6 passages of science info, graphs, charts, etc. And these questions will require you to read and interpret the information given. Some quick ACT tips. Oh, let's actually talk writing real briefly because juniors will take writing. 1 prompt, 40 minutes total. That means 40 minutes to read the prompt, plan, outline, develop a thesis, and write. Really tight time. That's the last thing you'll do on Tuesday. 2 ACT scorers will score your essay from 1 to 6 for a total possible score of a 12 total. Many students, I think the average is a 7.8 or something like that. It's on a slide, actually, let me check. The average score is a 7.7. Couple quick things. I think this is not very useful as far as scoring, but just so you're aware of scoring, it is Your ACT score, your composite score, is the average of your 4 ACT subject area scores. So if you scored a 30 in English, a 26 in math, a 31 in reading, a 29 in science, add those numbers together to equal 116, divide it by 4, and that's a 29. Anything less than a half rounds down, a half or more rounds up. Your writing score will be added in to English to create an ELA score. Couple quick tips, and then I will wish you luck, and I hope that y'all will tell me how it goes. Some ACT tips. Number 1, every time you take an ACT, learn from that experience. The ACT is a standardized test, which means that it's basically the same each year. Obviously, it's not the same exact passage, but they're always going to test certain concepts in the same way. Start to pick up on that, especially if this is your first or second ACT. Start to notice how you're going to encounter the same types of things. So the only way to improve on the ACT is to keep practicing and taking ACT tests. When it comes to English, if at all possible, if your reading speed allows, read the paragraph first. Read it paragraph by paragraph, correcting the grammar in your mind. Then look to the answer choices to find the one that most closely matches what you kind of already thought the answer should be. Finally, keep it simple. I always think about this like KISS, keep it simple. Concise answers are almost always best, meaning the fewer words to say the right thing. For math, I'm not a math teacher. Your math teachers, Mr. Bradford and Ms. Kelly, have done a great job. What I can tell you is that as much as I hate a math test, I do prefer a math test that gives me the right answer. They give you 5 possible answers and one of them is correct. So when in doubt, plug the answers in. When it comes to reading, stay alert, stay awake. I can't tell you the number of times I've proctored a test and seen when reading starts, students' heads start to hit the desk, eyes start to close. Even for me, an English teacher, a strong reader, it takes me a full 35 minutes to score in the 30s range on an ACT reading test. If I let myself slip a bit, I'm going to be slipping underneath that 30 mark, and that's going to be less points. When we say effectively skim, here's what that looks like. You get about 3 minutes and 30 seconds to actually read, ideally. If you need to skim, read the first paragraph fully. From then on, up till the conclusion, read the first and last sentence of each paragraph, skimming your eyes across the rest. So really read the first sentence of a paragraph, skim your eyes, and then really read the last sentence. Repeat for each paragraph, finally reading the last paragraph fully. ACT Science, again, wake yourself up. Press your fingertips together really hard, almost like it hurts a little bit, but it also sends energy to your brain, signaling time to wake up, time to get alert. Do the conflicting viewpoints last. And my final tip or word of wisdom / also proctor pet peeve, when and how to effectively guess. Never, ever, ever leave bubbles blank. It takes 30 seconds to truly guess and fill in bubbles, not 5 minutes. The proctors are only allowed to give you a 5-minute warning. So here's what that should look like. Let's say you're doing whatever test, you're bubbling, and the proctor says, you have 5 minutes remaining. Look at the clock. There'll be a clock in the room. Take a look at it. Think about 5 minutes. All right, 5 minutes from now would be 4:35. I'm gonna then answer, like really read and answer correctly 2 or 3 more questions. Then I'm gonna glance back up at the clock. When I see 1 minute or 30 seconds, something like that left, then is when I'm gonna start to bubble guess. If I look up at the clock after answering 2 and I still have 3 minutes, I'm gonna answer 1 more, look back at the clock. In that last minute is when you start to bubble anything that's blank, whether those are ones you left blank to come back to later and ones that are still remaining. Pick your magic letter, whatever it is, always A, always B, always C, always D, whatever it's gonna be, and bubble all that letter. No zigzags, no jumping around. If you bubble all A's, chances are that some of those will be right. If you bubble all B's, chances are that some of those will be right, so on and so forth. If you zigzag every individual question, you are only having a 25% chance of being right. So hedge your bet. Statistically speaking, it just makes more sense to always guess the same letter. That's actually all I have. We're not going to play a Kahoot because this is a recording. If you have questions or freak out or need anything or are worried about anything, please feel free to reach out to me at emily@capandgownproject.org. I know y'all are going to do great, and I hope to hear how it goes on Tuesday or Wednesday. Good luck, Cap and Gown.